one of my doctors. Doing one of those sleep apnea tests coming up.
So welcome to the 10 o'clock session, or Revive, as we call it around here, or Friday. So your choices today is you can hear John or John or John Orr, and you can hear Michael or you can hear Jonathan Orr. So it's good that you're here. Appreciate you being here. Jonathan and I have worked together 2 years, and I use that term loosely. So, it's not like on Monday mornings we're at the water cooler. In fact, I don't even know if we have a water cooler.
I don't think we do. Maybe
Jonathan
somewhere.
works out of Texas. I work out of the state of Ohio. So we get together maybe twice a year. I appreciate Jonathan, the work he's done. He's been in the ministry since 2011. He's been a pulpit minister, a youth minister, and involved as a ambassador for home missions since 2012.
Oh, no, for home mission, I've been here since 2021.
Okay, 2021. Okay, been married to Amber since 2012.
Yes.
Okay, there we go. I knew that 2012 in there somewhere. We appreciate the work he does in working with churches, and as you know, what we do with home mission is work with struggling churches to get them upright. Jonathan, thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, guys, I appreciate every single one of you for being in here and being willing to listen to me and bear with me this morning. I do not consider myself a techie or somebody who knows just a ridiculous amount about tech. But I think the reason why I was asked to do this class is because working with Home Mission, we work with a lot of small churches, and we run into a lot of difficulties with small churches as far as their technological footprint in their community and online, and all of these kind of things. And we're going to get to that in a second, but the first thing I wanted to start off by saying is just, if you want to show people what God has to offer the lost in your congregation, they have to know it exists and have an opinion on it. Like, they have to know, hey, this church is here, and I've heard of it, and I've seen them out in the community, and if I Google them and search them online, I'm going to find something. And that search is going to be able to show me a little bit about who they are. And that's an important thing. I'll tell you all a couple of stories about some churches we've worked with that we've given some gentle suggestions from, because they literally had no footprint when it came to online. So I've spoken and gone to countless churches with Home Mission, or at least I've lost count. And a lot of these churches, like I said, are 10 people, 15 people, less than that, 20 people, very, very small, mostly older. And when I get a hold of somebody, I ask them the obvious thing, and I'm like, all right, well, let me write down your church address. Let me write down a phone number I can get a hold of. Let me write down your class times and everything like that. Because some of these churches, you can't find a thing. I'll give an example. I went to a church that my father-in-law, who, my wife's here, my father-in-law passed away a few years ago, but before he passed away, he was an elder at the Downtown Church of Christ in Morrilton, Arkansas, and he used to preach at a lot of small churches after he retired and everything like that, and he set me up with a church not too far from where he lived in Arkansas. And when I Googled the times, I was like, all right, well, what's their church time? What's this? I couldn't find anything. Like, I Googled, okay, let's just say it was Westside Church of Christ, even though that wasn't the name of it. Nothing showed up. And when I went outside their building, their sign was broken, and you couldn't see their times. I mean, it was like a ghost. It was like they didn't exist. And there was another church I went to. This was a fun story. Amber remembers this. I typed in they told me their church times and all this kind of things. And I said, well, your address shows up in my Waze GPS app, Anybody know what Waze GPS? Yeah, one of those things. And I typed in the address. I'm like, yeah, that's a good address and everything. And I showed up to where I was found, on where it told me to go on that Waze app. And I was like, man, this doesn't look right. And so we knocked on the door, and we're like, is this a church? And there was actually a sign out there that said, Westside Church of Christ. Like I said, I'm making that up. That's not the name of the church I went to. And a guy came out in overalls. This was middle of Arkansas, and like one of those slop buckets. It was like we were in hillbilly country for sure. And he's like, "Can I help you guys?" And we're like, "Yeah, we're looking for the Westside Church of Christ." He's like, "I ain't here no more. I bought this property. It's over there." And all the chickens were, trying to, peck my ankles out and everything like that. And he's like, and I couldn't understand a word this guy was saying. He's like, "Oh, you just take a left over here, go by, you know how really, redneck people give instructions. You have no idea what they're saying." So I'm like, what did he just say? And so we called the guy back and said, and we tried to get a hold of him, and it was just ringing and ringing and ringing and ringing. And we were sitting there just looking all over this little town for something to where that church was. And we were late, and I was stressing out, and I'm like, oh, all these kind of things. Then finally he called me back, and he's like, "Well, you were late, and I never bring my phone to church," but I'm like, oh no. And so he finally told us the directions of where it was, and it was literally in the middle of nowhere. And this is another congregation, like I said, you Google it, there's no address, there's no updated address, there's no meeting times, all these kind of things. And so it's important, first of all, when somebody Googles your church, for something to actually pop up, right? Because if somebody moves into your community and they're looking for a church to connect with, the simplest things, like making sure that a Google search will pop up with your church name and address, phone number, all of these things, is a very simple but important thing. I remember inviting somebody to a church. I was the pulpit minister for the Needville Church of Christ from 2011 to 2014. This church had been in existence for I'd say about, 11 years. It started in the year 2000. My dad actually helped plant the church when I was in high school. And everywhere I go, I tell people about this church, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't know y'all existed." And I'm like, "Oh no, that's not a good thing." Because everyone who went to that church lived outside of the community. They lived 20, 30 minutes away, whatever it was. And so we're going to get to that in a second, but visibility, letting people know you exist and that you're a viable place that they can walk in the door and understand and get a sense of who you are before they step in the door, is a very important thing. Simple things, the right information. There's a lot of churches that when you go on their Facebook or their website or whatever it is today, they have not changed their meeting times since COVID. Mm-hmm. Have y'all ran into that? Yeah, and I remember going to one church and I said, yeah, you have literally your meeting times, and it's like a sentence, and this is our meeting times. We meet at 11 o'clock and then there's nothing after the and. You deleted it and forgot to update it. So I just went up there and I'm like, "Hey guys, just a little suggestion, make sure that on your information, give the right information, because if not, nobody's gonna know where to find you." And if they don't know where to find you, from a millennial's perspective, if somebody younger is looking for your church, they're not going to respect what you're trying to do. They're going to feel like you're lazy. They're going to feel like you're not trying. They're going to feel like you've given up, and they're not going to be interested in visiting visiting your church and listening to what you have to say. And what we give, obviously, is just eternally valuable, right? There's so many churches out there that are all over the internet, and they have all these technology things, and we might not ever reach that, but what we do have is the truth. And if we're spreading the truth and we have the truth, and the Church of Christ, I was raised, obviously my dad, John Orr, raised by a Church of Christ preacher, but the reason I'm still going to the Church of Christ today is because we're dedicated to getting it right doctrinally, biblically, and the churches I'm a part of, spiritually, lovingly as well. Like, we're trying to do what Christ would want on this earth when it comes to the church. And so for people to find that, that's of the most important. We have to have the right information. When it comes to social media activity, I'll give you all this tip right here. If people are looking for a church and they're looking for information on the church, anytime when I've tried out for preaching jobs, or when I have looked for a local church in town, or there's a lot of situations where I'll have my friends text me because they know I'm in ministry. Hey, I'm moving to this area. Can you find me a church? And if I don't specifically know somebody where that is, I'll start Googling and I'll start looking. All right, well, what churches are around there? And I will go to their Facebook page is one of the first places I'll go, and I'll get to websites in a second. And for me, the things I look for and the things other people have told me that they look for are, just activity. There are some Facebook pages you look at and they exist, but they don't have any new posts since like 2021, since 2014. And you automatically think, are they even still meeting? Are they even still together? But if you're have a social media, and I really suggest, like, Facebook is the best social media app to advertise your church right now. I don't think a lot of older generations get on Twitter. I try not to get on Twitter because it is like, Mad Max Thunderdome there. It's just a lot of chaos and hatred and horrible information and just, oh my goodness. I have a Twitter, but I'm depressed after 10 minutes of scrolling. I'm like, goodness, people really think these things? What? And Facebook, has some of that too, but Twitter's like just multiples worse than all of that. Instagram, I don't think a lot of older people really get on Instagram to look for church information, but Facebook is a very viable. I've multiple times had visitors come into different congregations. I found y'all on Facebook and I liked what I saw, and I'm here now. So a little tip on what to have on your Facebook page. The first thing is like a weekly post is really important. Like, make sure you're posting every single week on your Facebook page, so that people know that you are indeed caring and active about showing your, like, I remember when I was in school, people said, show your work, right? Show your work, show how you got to this conclusion. And it's important for us to show our work on social media, that we are indeed having activities, that we are indeed having our sermons available, we are indeed having our updates available. We're posting baptisms, we're posting pictures, we're posting all these things. I think events are very important. I know that a lot of the churches that are getting younger families and that are that are finding interest from younger families are making invites to events and inviting everyone. Tonight I have, working for Home Mission and being at Revive Us Again, or Revive, sorry, I keep getting it confused. This week, one of my best friends said, hey, would you like to be the best man at my wedding? And I said, oh, that'd be an honor, man. Like, we've been friends for 20 years. I would love that. Like, you're my guy. We used to be roommates before I met Amber and everything like that. So it's a blessing. And I was like, when's the wedding? He's like, oh, I haven't decided that yet. And then he gets back to me, oh yeah, my wedding is, let's see, it's April 26th today. My wedding is April 27th. And the reception is today. And so I'm like, man, how am I going to juggle that? I'm supposed to be here. But I talked to everybody at Home Mission. I'm like, it's fine. You can leave a little early. So in a couple hours, I'm heading to Houston to be in a wedding rehearsal dinner. But anyway, point I was trying to make is he sent me an invite to his rehearsal dinner. And when Amber asked me, hey, when is this rehearsal dinner again? I immediately said, okay, let me check my invite. And it has all the information right there. So if your church is having a trunk or treat, if your church is having a men's fish fry, if your church is having a Tuesday night Bible study at a location or whatever it is, if you go on Facebook and you send invites to people, you create an event and you send invites to people, people are more likely to remember and have a reference to look back on as far as, okay, this is what's happening in the church. And it will also show them, okay, well, they are having events, they are having things. Younger people like to be involved and they like to see, like a buffet of different things that are going on in churches. If they go into a church and all they do is meet Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night, and there's no extra fellowship, then they're probably going to look elsewhere. And so showing your work and showing your activity is really important. And posting once a week is, and posting those events. Also just posting scriptures, like encouraging people on social media is a really important thing. My mom does something really cool where she has a text group just on her phone. She'll send like a group of 20 people, 30 people. I don't even know how many people she's up to right now because she has different ways of sending these posts. She'll have a scripture every single day, and she's asked my brother and my sister and myself to do one a week as well. And so on Tuesdays, I send out a scripture, and other people send it out different days. And that's another way, like those daily reminders, just ways to connect to introverts, people who aren't, who feel a little skeptical of getting phone calls all the time or getting old-fashioned visits or anything like that, which all of those things are way valuable and way important and should never be looked at as archaic or anything like that. But those introverts who are getting those text messages, getting those reminders and all that kind of stuff, that's very important. And posting scriptures, that's an encouraging thing, and it will show people, hey, once a week on our Facebook, there's a scripture. That's something we can look forward to. That's something we can see. That's something we can sink our teeth in. That's something we can discuss. Live streams are also a really important thing, whether it be on Facebook or whether it be on YouTube or your website. Usually all three is a good thing as well. If they're seeing your sermons on a weekly basis, that's kind of par for the course now. I feel like before COVID that, you were lucky to get those things, but now it's like everybody has those weekly live streams. And I know some churches that's all the social media activity that they can muster because they're super, super, super small. But that right there is something I see it pop up every single week. I'm subscribed to multiple churches' YouTube channels, and I'll see their sermons pop up every week, and I'll see, okay, they're still going. The preacher's still there. The song leader's still there. The people are still there. They're still making these announcements. That activity and that window into your church service is a great reminder, and it sticks in people's heads when they're like, you know what, I haven't been to church in a while, but I'm looking for one. If they see those things, they're like, okay, well, maybe this is a place I will feel comfortable going. Also, a suggestion is to get creative on your social media. One of the things that I have enjoyed seeing is like if somebody just makes a video once a week and just gives a 5-minute Devo or something like that, like the preacher, one of the elders, one of the deacons, whoever. That's an encouraging thing. That's a cool thing. That's something that's different and that stands out and that lets people know these people are serious about the Bible, and these people are excited and enthusiastic to share the Bible in any way that they can. They're doing these videos. They're doing these live streams. They're asking these questions. They're posting these scriptures. These are people who are on fire for the Lord, and their activity is engaging. Their activity is attractive to me. We also, another thing, asking questions. When I look at social media engagement, the things that get the most engagement a lot of times are when somebody poses a question. Somebody says, hey, what's your favorite hymn in the songbook? And a lot of people will say, oh, this is my favorite hymn, blah, blah, blah. You know, just something like that to get people connected. And also from a technology standpoint, the more people comment and like your post, the algorithm, is that word foreign to anybody, algorithm? Okay, so algorithm is basically, if you like a post from, you know, the Westside Church of Christ. I just keep saying Westside Church of Christ. I don't even go to anything called the Westside Church of Christ, but we're going to use that as a blanket term. Westside Church of Christ. If you like the Westside Church of Christ, one of their posts, it's more likely the next time you get onto Facebook, it will be at the top of your feed. If you comment on the Westside Church of Christ post, then it's more likely it will be at the top of their feed. If somebody's friend likes and comments on the Westside Church of Christ, it's more likely it will be at the top of their feed. Facebook and other social media platforms use this information to customize the experience for everyone who gets on Facebook. So the more they're liking, the more they're commenting, the more they're viewing what you are posting, the more likely they are to get your information when you really want them to get their information. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah, so that the algorithm is what that's called. It connects you to what you're showing interest in. Sometimes negatively. I remember one time I'll tell you, this is kind of funny. When Facebook first came out, it said, you know, it would ask you all these questions, and it says, what are you interested in? And romantically, I wasn't married at the time, and I accidentally put, I'm interested in men. And so I got all these advertisements that says, oh, well, here's the gay destination of the year. I'm like, why am I getting all of these things? And then somebody pointed out, it says you're interested in men on Facebook. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna change that. So like, but you wanna like things that are truly interesting and truly connected with, so that algorithm is going to be very important. So that's why people ask questions and engage. There are accounts on Twitter who have like 200,000 people like following them, and all they do is ask questions, or they'll create polls. You can create a poll on Facebook if you look at the settings and everything like that. And since I don't have an example of everything up here, I want to suggest to you, if you're interested in any of these things, go to YouTube, say how to create a poll on Facebook, write it down, look at it, and there will be a tutorial for everything. I don't know anything about fixing cars, but I have been able to fix my car and fix different things by just by looking at YouTube and saying how to fix a steering wheel on a car. And I'll look it up and I'm like, oh, that's how you do it. So there's how-to videos for absolutely everything. And I didn't want to spend all my time on like granular details. So if you do not know how to create a poll on Facebook or anything, put it in YouTube, how to create a poll on Facebook. It will show you very quickly and very easily how to do all of these things. You know, say something like guess the Bible character, or post pictures like this is our youth, this is the VBS, this is the baptisms we have. All of those things are more likely to get people's attention. Plus they're just, you know, rejoice with those who rejoice, right? We want to celebrate with each other. We want to be excited for each other. There's a church I work with in Chillicothe, Texas, that one of the things that I did when I had a launch session with them recently for Home Mission is we do goal setting with Home Mission. Like, what are some goals what are some things you're not doing right now that you would like to do? And they said, well, our Facebook page is very poorly run and we don't do anything on it. And that's something I've kind of been encouraging them to do for over a year now. And they finally did it, and they are on it. They've had like 3 baptisms in the past 3 or 4 months or something like that. And every single one of them, they'll post it on there, and there is hundreds of people who will love it and like it and comment on it and see the activity that they're having, see that the gospel message is being shared and there is being fruit. And it's not just that, but they're discipling these young people who have been baptized. Like, they'll be up there saying the prayers, they'll be up there doing the communion, they'll be inviting their friends to church. Last time, a couple of weeks ago, I went to that church, I saw just a row of young people because these kids who had just got baptized invited all their friends. And I'm like, yes, those are the things that you love to see. Those are the changes, those are the differences, those are the activities that are having in the church. So to share those things is not like a cheap advertisement to where, oh, look at us, look at us, look at us. But it's showing what God is doing and what God is able to do in these churches. And great things are indeed happening. YouTube. I mentioned YouTube, kind of going away from Facebook. There are, like I said, weekly sermons on YouTube are really important. For me, if I've ever wanted to be a part of the church, one of the first things I do is I go on YouTube and I look at their sermons and I look at their worship. For me, I look, okay, they don't have instruments. They don't have women getting up there. They have sound preaching. They have great singing. Like, all of these things are things that make me decide whether or not I want to visit this church, whether or not I want to be a part of this church. If I'm doing research, these are good things to have. And so streaming your worship, streaming your singing, streaming the way that you do worship and all these kind of things is an important thing for when people are looking for that decision of where I would like to place membership and where I would like to visit and everything like that. In fact, one of my friends invited me to a church recently, and I looked at their church website and I immediately was like, okay, I feel very uncomfortable going here. Like, they have some things that I don't doctrinally agree with. And so those things, it can be for the negative or it can be for the positive. Like I said, one of my friends, the one who's getting married, he's like, do you know any good churches in this area I'm going to? And I said, well, let me look. And that's what I did. I looked at their Facebook, I looked at their website, I looked at their YouTube page. I shared all the links with him. He's like, I want a biblically sound Lord's church. And he found one, and he's been going there ever since, and he's really happy with it. And so that information, having that information out there is very important. What does a good church website look like? To me, it's really important. Like, if you want to have pictures of your elders, your deacons, your preacher, all of these things, maybe a little bio or information about them. To me, if I'm looking to go to a church, I want to be able to identify faces before I walk in. Does that make sense with y'all? Like, if I'm going to the West Freeway Church of Christ and I see Chris Graham and I've already seen a picture of him and I've already seen a little information on him, I'm like, oh, there's Chris, I could go talk to him. Or I looked at the elders and I saw Ronnie Moore, then I'm like, okay, well, there's Ronnie. I'm going to go talk to him. Like, these things are valuable in the decision making of, am I going to want to check this church out and all that kind of stuff. Beliefs. In this day and age, people are really looking for, like Brother Harris said, they're looking for something authentic. They're looking for authenticity. And so if you have your beliefs out on the table and they're not vague, they're not, because some churches, you look at their beliefs and their core beliefs that are written on these websites and you're like, what do they even mean by these things? Like, what is this all about? There's these flowery phrases and wording, and you're like, man, this seems kind of sketchy. But if you lay all your cards out on the table, we're a biblical church. We believe in baptism for the remission of sins. We believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. Like, all of these things, then it's going to be out on the table. They're going to know what you believe, and there's going to be no surprises. When I was a youth minister, the elders always told me, Jonathan, you and us are going to get along as there's no surprises. Tell us everything that goes on. Don't make us find out something without you telling us first. And so that usually worked out and happened, although, not always. Believe it or not, some people at church like to gossip sometimes, but you know, that's another story for another time. So that website, Believes Ministries, like I said, meeting times is really important. Like, is there a youth program? Is there a young adult program? Is there what are your classes on? What are some of the sermons that have been there? Some of the series, some of the lessons. All of those things are very valuable. I wanted y'all to write down a tool that is very valuable. So a lot of churches that we work with that are smaller, they're not really gung-ho about getting a website. But we have at Home Mission a organization, and I believe they have a booth here. I saw their booth. Ichthus, has anybody gone by the Ichthus?
They're not here.
They're not here, but they do have a booth here. If their name is kind of hard to spell, so I'm going to spell it out for everybody. It's ICHTHUS. So ICHTHUS .digital. Ichthus.digital. And if you need any help on technology, if you need any help on your website building, they're our tech people for Home Mission. Let me tell you, if you email them, they're going to get back to you quickly. They're going to help you. They're a good organization. Their prices are comparable to what else you're going to get. They're willing to help smaller churches with smaller prices on their technological needs and their website building and all of these kind of things. These guys know everything. I have asked them so many difficult questions because, like I said, I'm not a super techie. So anytime I need help, it's not a bad thing to humble yourself and say, hey, can you please help me with these things? Can you teach me? Can you train me? Can you explain this to me? Can I ask you stupid questions? Like all these kind of things. Ichthus is a really good example of an organization within the Brotherhood that will really help you out with those things. So I really recommend them. They help Home Mission with all of our tech, with all of our website building, all of those things, and they're really, really good. Another thing that's really important when it comes to your website or your Facebook page, and I'm going to tell you a phrase here in a second that I cannot explain with great, detail without, when people tell me about it, it's talking over my head. And I like to keep classes like this simplistic, so I'm going to give you some information about this. But when you are Googling something and say Westside Church of Christ, our old friends of Westside Church of Christ, and nothing pops up, then obviously that's a problem. And usually it's because there's nothing to pop up. But sometimes, because of the way you have worded your website, because of the way you have worded your Facebook page, that's the reason it doesn't show up. Like, there's a church I can think of right now, I won't call them out by name, but they have an active Facebook page, but you can't find it when you search for it because of the way that they have worded their thing. Instead of saying Westside Church of Christ, they say the Church of Christ in Westside. And for some reason, just that twisting of the word, it won't pop anything up. It just won't. So there's something called, and y'all can write this down, search engine optimization. Search engine optimization. And the simplistic description of search engine optimization is they give you tips on how to make sure that when they Google your church, it pops up at the top of the search results engine, or it pops up near the top, at least on the first page of the search results engine. I looked at there's a YouTube channel that explains search engine optimization really simply. And they also have a 2-hour course on it if you're that interested in figuring it out. And I'm going to spell it out for you. This is not a church website, this is not a church affiliated page, but it just teaches about search engine optimization. And if you talk to Ichthus, they can tell you about these things as well. And it is spelled AHREFS. It's like refs. People are saying that in the NBA playoffs right now. Refs.
Spell that again.
AHREFS. refs. And then, also type in search engine optimization and then that name. And it'll pop right up and it'll give you, I think one of the courses is like 10 minutes. And it'll just give you the slightest information. It'll give you the basic information of, okay, this is what I need to do in order to get my traffic more optimized, more magnified. And then there's another course that they have for free that's like 2 hours. So I would say test it out. Like if you haven't Googled your own church or your own organization in a while, go do that and see what pops up. If it is not there, if you're having problems getting people to be able to see your church when they Google it, look into this search engine optimization. I had a conversation with a guy who he previously worked with Herald of Truth. He's working with another Christian organization right now who's a friend of mine. And I asked him, hey, what was that again? That helps you, be more magnified and optimized on Google. And he told me about this, and I looked up this information, and that is some great information for you to look into in order to make sure that your website and your Facebook is actually popping up and the information is actually getting there. Does that make sense? Okay, no? Oh, it does, okay. All right, so some other things, just some other quick tips. I've got about 10 minutes. And I just found out I'm teaching this class again because I think somebody didn't show up and I'm having to do it again. So that's fine. It'll be the similar information. So y'all don't have to come back. Y'all can go somewhere else. Unless you just really love the sound of my voice, which if that's the case, then I feel bad for you. Some other things just to keep in mind. The community. This is outside of the realm of technology, but, technology can only go so far, right? Like, if a church is nothing but online, then there's only half of the work being done, right? When I was a youth minister, one of the things that I really wanted to do with my kids is get our kids out in the community. Not only, mostly to teach them about service to God, to teach them about making sure that they are learning to, visit the widows and the orphans in their needs and keeping themselves unstained from the world, as the book of James says is true and undefiled religion. For them to learn to bear one another's burdens and thus fulfill the law of Christ. For them to learn biblical concepts through service and through action and all of these things. So we had them out in the community, and if you have a presence in the community, that's something you can share online, and that's something that can help you have a presence and be an advertisement, a walking advertisement for your church. Having a presence at community events. One of the things I tried to do is I looked for where are the areas that are not being serviced as well as they possibly could be. I found a retirement activity home in our community that had no one helping. And they came to me all the time and they're like, Jonathan, I know that we're calling you all the time, but can you bring a group of kids up here to help move some tables for us? Can you bring a group of kids up here to do this? Can you come up here for this? Can you help us with this? and we ended up just being kind of their go-to people and they would post all over their social media, hey, the Hillcrest Church of Christ in Gainesville, Texas is always willing to help us. Their kids are great, their people are great, and I personally feel uncomfortable with praise. That's just me, but we did get our names in the newspaper, and the kids are like, wow, I'm in the newspaper, and it was because we helped them, and we did for them, and we went up there and said, okay, tell us everything we can do, and we will do it for you. And we had a big work day there, and they publicized it. It wasn't our idea, it was their idea, and we were known by the community because of these things. We even had, give you a quick little funny thing, we even had a tug of war, a community tug of war. And they said, we want everyone to dress up in crazy outfits and come to this community tug of war. And we were one of only like 2 churches that had a presence there. My idea was, okay, we can all wear funny masks and go out there and have this tug of war. And then we realized when we went out there, we were, I think, the only team that actually followed those instructions. And so everybody was out there in their matching t-shirts and all these kind of things. And we were wearing Mexican wrestler masks or Mario Brothers masks, or I think you wore a Batman mask, right? We looked like total goofballs, but I'll tell you what, they remember us. And the first team they put us against, we had every big strong person that we were gonna have. There was injuries, there was excuses, and so we had this guy who worked out all the time, was in the gym, could bench press 400 pounds. He's like, hey, I sprained my ankle, I can't do it. And so I got my wife to replace that guy. So we did not have a great team. And the first person they put us against was the firefighters. So we did not do well. I think that whole tug of war lasted about 4 seconds. But we did beat the Baptists, so there we go. And then we lost again to the police squad. So we wasn't a great thing. But going into the schools, all of these things, people are searching. People are searching, and they're searching for a place that they can have a home with them. And we in the Church of Christ are committed to giving them the right doctrine, which is rare these days because people care less and less about doctrine until they realize the difference, right? I have a relative who was out of Christianity for a long time, and they recently got back in, and they went to a church because of their liberal beliefs of, well, we want a church that's accepting of this and accepting of that. And they kept going to these churches. They're like, these people aren't preaching the Bible at all. These people aren't incorporating scriptures. These people aren't even really talking about Jesus. If I'm going to get back into Christ, I need to find places that actually talk about him, that actually want me to live like him. And so we have that going for us because we're following God's will. But in order for us to not stay modern or stay current or submit to trends, but in order for people to know we exist and have an opinion of us and have a desire through their online activity to come give us a shot and for us to bring them to Christ through that, all of these things can be valuable to just show them who we are, to give them the right love, the right access, the right scripture, and the right sensibility for them to say, you know what, I'm going to try this church out, and the rest is up to us and up to God, right? Yep. Does anybody have any questions? Like I said, I'm not a super expert. I hope y'all learned something from what I've said. I see a couple of shaking heads, so thank you, God, for not totally exposing me. But is there any questions or anything that I said that might be confusing or anything? Thank y'all for not. Oh, go ahead.
More about your optimizing your search engine. I looked up the website you mentioned, and they have an optimization thing. Is that a good idea for just sermon titles that you're going to post the?
No, for optimization, that is basically like I said, there's a church that I am working with for Home Mission. If I go to Google and I type in their name, nothing shows up. Their Facebook doesn't show up, nothing shows up. Search engine optimization is a tool in order to fix that. It's a tool in order to make sure that you're doing the right things with your website, with your Facebook, with your information, in order to get yourself higher on those Google rankings.
Yeah,
Because
like
there
it's
are
more like keywords.
keywords, yes.
Yeah.
You probably know more about this stuff than me.
And
So,
SEO,
go ahead.
SEO, search engine optimization, so it's keywords that you put within your website just to get you higher on the search engine, like you said, first page or probably up to the top.
It's one number of things, just have a whole bunch of related keywords listed in their website.
Yeah.
Like preaching or the gospel of Jesus Christ, look at the good news or family or, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, and also like kind of the order in which you word things.
Yeah.
Helps. So all of those things. So.
Because
Yeah.
not everybody's a good Googler.
No.
No.
Yeah.
These help you get in touch with bad Googlers.
Yes.
So. All right, guys. Thank y'all so much. I appreciate y'all.